What if I told you the January 6th pipe bomber just confessed, and his story reveals how YouTube algorithms can radicalize ordinary people into domestic terrorists? After 4 years of mystery, Brian Cole Jr. finally broke his silence. But his confession exposes something more dangerous than one man's violent breakdown. This isn't just about pipe bombs or January 6th. This is about how election fraud narratives, amplified by social media, create a pipeline from political frustration to domestic terrorism. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Today's story traces the digital breadcrumbs that led from YouTube videos to pipe bombs outside the nation's political headquarters. December 4th, 2025, FBI agents surrounded a modest home in Woodbridge, Virginia, ending one of the most perplexing mysteries in modern American politics. Brian Cole Jr., 30 years old, had successfully evaded capture for nearly 5 years after planting pipe bombs outside the Republican and Democratic National Committee headquarters on January 5th, 2021. The bombs never exploded, but their discovery on January 6th diverted crucial police resources just as Trump supporters stormed the Capitol building. Then came the confession that changed everything. In a detailed FBI interview following his arrest, Cole didn't just admit to planting the bombs, he provided a psychological roadmap of his radicalization process that reads like a case study in digital extremism. Something just snapped, Cole told investigators, but his confession reveals the snapping wasn't sudden. It was gradual, methodical, and powered by algorithms designed to keep users engaged at any cost. Cole explained that after the 2020 election, when it first seemed like something was wrong, he began following the issue closely on YouTube and Reddit. This seemingly innocent research marked the beginning of his descent into violence. The phrase, "when it first seemed like something was wrong," reveals everything about Cole's mindset. He didn't start with violent intentions. He started with questions, doubts, and a desire for information. The platforms he chose to answer those questions would ultimately transform curiosity into catastrophe. Cole told investigators he felt bewildered by what he was seeing online. In his view, if people feel that something as important as voting in the federal election is being tampered with, then someone needs to speak up, right? But here's the crucial detail that media coverage has largely overlooked. Cole's radicalization wasn't driven by mainstream political discourse. It was powered by YouTube's recommendation algorithm and Reddit's echo chambers, platforms specifically designed to maximize engagement through increasingly extreme content. Cole's confession provides unprecedented insight into how digital radicalization actually works. He didn't seek out violent content initially. The algorithms brought violence to him, packaging extremism as information and research that ordinary people like Cole consumed without recognizing the manipulation. The timing of Cole's digital deep dive is particularly significant. November and December 2020 represented peak engagement for election fraud content on social media platforms. Users searching for election information were systematically funneled toward increasingly radical interpretations of events. But Cole's path to violence involved a crucial psychological shift. He began believing that people up top, including people on both sides, were deliberately ignoring people's grievances and dismissing concerned citizens as conspiracy theorists or fascists. This sense of abandonment by political leadership created the psychological space for violence. If legitimate authorities wouldn't address his concerns, Cole reasoned, perhaps illegitimate methods were justified. Cole's confession reveals that he never really been an openly political person before 2020. This detail is crucial because it demonstrates how digital radicalization can target politically disengaged individuals who lack robust frameworks for processing political information. When Cole said, "I really don't like either party at this point," he was articulating the anti-establishment sentiment that extremist content specifically cultivates. The goal isn't partisan loyalty, it's systematic distrust of democratic institutions. Cole's choice of targets reflects this anti-institutional mindset. He didn't target specific politicians or partisan figures. He targeted the headquarters of both major political parties because they were in charge, and he wanted to do something to the parties. The bipartisan nature of Cole's attack distinguishes his case from typical partisan political violence. This wasn't Republican versus Democrat. This was radicalized citizen versus democratic system itself. Cole's inspiration came from the Troubles, the roughly 30-year ethno-nationalist conflict in Northern Ireland. This detail reveals sophisticated understanding of political violence tactics that Cole almost certainly didn't possess before his digital research. The Troubles reference suggests Cole's online research didn't stop at election fraud claims. He was consuming content about political violence, learning methodologies, and developing tactical knowledge about domestic terrorism. This progression from election questions to violence research represents the exact pathway that extremist algorithms are designed to create. Users enter seeking information about legitimate political concerns and emerge with knowledge about bomb-making and terrorist tactics. Cole's confession includes a chilling detail about intent. He placed the devices at night because he did not want to kill people, and was pretty relieved when the bombs didn't explode. This suggests Cole wanted to send a political message through violence without committing mass murder. But intention and outcome often diverge in domestic terrorism cases. Cole's bombs could have killed innocent civilians, law enforcement officers, or political leaders. The only reason his attack didn't produce casualties was luck, not planning. The psychological profile emerging from Cole's confession represents a new category of domestic terrorist, the algorithmically radicalized citizen. Unlike traditional extremists who join organized movements, Cole was radicalized by machines designed to maximize user engagement. This distinction matters because it suggests traditional counterterrorism approaches may be inadequate for addressing algorithmic extremism. You can't arrest an algorithm or negotiate with a recommendation engine. Cole denied that his actions were connected to Congress or the January 6th events, but the timing suggests otherwise. His bombs were discovered just as Trump supporters stormed the Capitol, diverting police resources when democratic institutions were under attack. The 4-year gap between Cole's attack and his confession raises uncomfortable questions about platform accountability. How many other users followed similar radicalization pathways? How many potential domestic terrorists are currently being shaped by the same algorithmic processes that transformed Cole? Cole's case study in digital radicalization occurred entirely on mainstream platforms, YouTube and Reddit, not fringe sites or dark web forums. This means the infrastructure that radicalized Cole remains fully operational, targeting new users with the same engagement-maximizing algorithms. The confession also reveals the inadequacy of platform policies designed to address harmful content. Cole wasn't consuming content that would trigger automated removal systems. He was following a carefully curated pathway of increasingly extreme educational material that algorithms specifically promote. Current content moderation approaches focus on removing obviously violent material, but Cole's radicalization suggests the problem isn't just extreme content. It's the algorithmic amplification of doubt and anti-institutional sentiment that creates psychological conditions for violence. The most disturbing aspect of Cole's confession is its ordinariness. He doesn't present as mentally ill, ideologically committed, or socially isolated. He was simply someone who had questions about an election and used social media platforms to find answers. This ordinariness suggests that algorithmic radicalization could potentially affect millions of users who begin with legitimate political concerns and end up consuming increasingly extreme interpretations of events. Cole's case also highlights the failure of political leadership to address legitimate concerns about election integrity without feeding conspiracy theories. When citizens have genuine questions about democratic processes, the response should be transparent information, not dismissal that drives people toward extremist alternatives. But the broader responsibility lies with platforms that profit from engagement regardless of social consequences. YouTube and Reddit's business models create financial incentives for radicalizing content that outweigh any moral considerations about domestic terrorism. The confession reveals that Cole's radicalization was powered by profit-maximizing algorithms, not ideological commitment. He wasn't recruited by extremist organizations. He was guided by machines programmed to keep him clicking and consuming increasingly radical content. This distinction between human and algorithmic radicalization represents a fundamental shift in how domestic terrorism develops in the digital age. Traditional approaches focused on disrupting human networks may be insufficient when the radicalizing force is automated and scaled across millions of users. Looking ahead, Cole's confession should serve as a warning about the domestic terrorism pipeline operating inside mainstream social media platforms. Every day, algorithms guide users from political curiosity to extremist conviction, creating new potential domestic terrorists through engagement-maximizing recommendation engines. The legal proceedings against Cole will determine his individual punishment, but the systemic issues his case reveals remain unaddressed. The platforms that radicalized him continue operating with the same algorithms, targeting new users with the same strategies that transform confusion into violence. The most troubling element of Cole's story is its reproducibility. His path from YouTube research to pipe bomb construction represents a scalable process that algorithms can replicate with any user who begins asking political questions at moments of social uncertainty. The January 6th pipe bomber's confession provides unprecedented insight into digital radicalization, but it also exposes our collective failure to address the algorithmic infrastructure that creates domestic terrorists from ordinary citizens seeking political information. In the end, Cole's transformation from confused voter to domestic terrorist wasn't driven by ideology, mental illness, or social isolation. It was driven by algorithms designed to maximize engagement through psychological manipulation that our society has yet to acknowledge, understand, or regulate. The confession closes one mystery but opens a larger question. How many more Brian Coles are currently being shaped by the same digital forces? Until we address the algorithmic infrastructure of radicalization, Coles' story represents not an isolated case, but a preview of threats to come. What do you think? Does algorithmic radicalization represent a new category of domestic terrorism that requires different approaches than traditional extremism? Should social media platforms be held responsible for users radicalized by engagement-maximizing algorithms? Drop your thoughts in the comments, but keep it civil and substantive. If this analysis helped you understand the digital pathways that create domestic terrorists, smash that like button and subscribe for more insights into the stories that really matter. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.